Good evening, this is Brown at IF Brown, and tonight we're going to be talking about Dusk by Ron D. So Dusk begins with the character of Samantha, or Sam for short, who is an immigrations officer, and she is at the moment working a missing persons case. And the case is a little complicated due to the fact that not only is this a co-worker of hers, but a man with whom she was having an affair. And so the trail takes her to this ghost town that's right on the border between Texas and Mexico. And it's a place that's reputedly haunted or cursed, depending on who you talk to. And so she kicks around this place for a bit until nightfall, which turns out to be a very bad idea because said ghost town turns out to be the home of a group of vampires. And she barely survives the encounter, through dumb luck, as well as a crucifix that she has happened to be, wearing. And by the time she gets back to civilization and relays her story to her superiors, they, place her on psychiatric leave because, well, vampires, they don't exist. Well, unfortunately, they come to find that they do exist because this very same group of vampires soon takes it upon themselves to expand their base of operations to a more urban area, namely Dallas, Texas. And next thing you know, you have a vampire outbreak, and you have people who are turning up in this new army of the dead, as well as people who are being slaughtered. And so the group of people that might be able to put a stop to these monsters are in fact hindered by the very same people who are supposed to be helping them, aka the police. But eventually, though, the people have to face facts that monsters that surely don't exist do exist. And the people that they used to be, as in the ones who are, turned, the people they used to be are no longer there. All that's there is, a creature that thrives on, a lack of inhibitions that their newfound, state has brought them to. And that's basically Dusk in a nutshell. Vampire outbreak in Dallas, Texas. But anyway, though, the book this was actually the third book to come out of the Abyss horror line that Dell had put out in the 90s. And considering that this was on the heels of The Cipher by Kathy Koja and Nightlife by Brian Hodge, both of which were excellent novels, by the way, there was quite a bit of anticipation on my part in reading this. But, you got this, really moody artwork on the cover here that, promises something, sort of game-changing, as it were, at least when it comes to, the lore of vampires. And unfortunately, cover art aside, there's really nothing game-changing about this book. In fact, I would say that, had this book consisted solely of the section where Samantha is in the ghost town and has her encounter with the vampires, that section right there would have been a really good short story. But unfortunately, this was something where a short story should have ended, but it went beyond that. And, you end up getting a full-length novel of, characters who you kind of have a hard time keeping up with because they're introduced so haphazardly. And you also have I guess you could say, an almost teenage mentality when it comes to the link between sex and violence when it comes to, the vampires. Because, there's always been an element of sensuality when it comes to, the vampires, be it in books or movies. And unfortunately, though, this is a book that handles it in a rather juvenile manner. I'm talking like bad porno territory, because anytime, there's, someone who's introduced, they are more than likely about to either, get laid by someone, or they're about to get laid and killed by someone. That someone usually being a vampire. And so that's the other thing. I mean, it seems like most of the time, whenever I was reading this book, I mean, people were getting laid left and right. And so it kind of got to a point where once you got past that part in the book with the ghost town, it was hard to take it seriously. And for me personally, like, I don't consider myself a prude by any means. It's just that when it comes to sexuality, especially in the horror genre, I've always found that, it works for me if, say, I'm invested in the characters, that, I care about what's going on with them. So when, this, moment of, physical bonding happens, something that's supposed to be a rather, emotional experience, or physically, pleasurable experience, with taking place between, characters, that, I've become attached to, I tend to find the experience, that much better as a reader. But in this case, though, I mean, yeah, you have a ton of characters getting introduced left and right, but you don't really have anyone to care about, or at least I didn't really find myself caring about anyone. And the few characters that, were believable, or who were, I guess, written like real people, or somewhat realistic people in the setting, they didn't stick around long enough to really get attached to, through one way or another. Whereas, the characters that we're stuck with, they're written in an almost juvenile manner. And so, I mean, this is my first time reading a book by, Ron D. And I know he's written some other things. So I don't know if, he improved as a writer after writing Dusk. But since this was literally my first time reading something by him, I came away with, I came away with an impression of someone who had some good ideas. And every now and then you can see, a better story poking its way out. I mean, case in point, like I said, the whole section in the book with the ghost town, that was actually a well done part. Because, I mean, there's an eeriness, to the atmosphere, and there's a building sense of dread. And then once, Sam comes face to face with the vampires, it's a genuine WTF moment. I mean, that part was good, but once you get past that, that's when it gets to, okay, now let's start writing for all the horny teenagers in the audience. And so, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if I had been a teenager, or, maybe in my early 20s or something like that, and I've been reading something like this, I'd probably be like, whoa, this is hot, but I mean, I'm in my 30s now, and I mean, like I said, I mean, I can appreciate, sensuality, in a horror novel. It's just, I kind of expect more, or better, I should say, in terms of being able to relate to the characters and what's going on, whether it be, like, whatever the experience is that they're going through. Anyway, though, it was a letdown for me, though, because, I mean, the idea of a vampire outbreak taking place in Dallas, Texas, I mean, that's kind of close to home. And I was really looking forward to, seeing, someone's take on that. And I'm sure, other people have, done, a vampire story taking place in the same area. It's just, well, this is the first time I bought a book that literally had that happen. And I came away with a result that was underwhelming. I mean, to be sure, I mean, there are moments when you see just how chaotic it would be. with this vampire outbreak. But you get stuff like Stephen King's Salem's Lot, or I forgot who it was written by, but the Strain trilogy. It was recently made into a cable series a while back. You see a vampire outbreak, in a community area, and in both cases, in both the Strain trilogy, as well as Salem's Lot, and it's terrifying because you see just how quickly things would fall apart, and there are moments that sort of bring that to mind when it comes to the outbreak, in this book. But unfortunately, though, you're kind of stuck with characters who all that seems to be on their mind is sex, 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 and it's just, I'm sorry, it was hard for me to really get invested when that's all that was going on. And I don't know if Ron D was trying to say, make a link between sex and violence, or at the very least, tap into the innate, sensuality of the vampire, and I guess the effect that would have on their victims, seduction and then killing or turning them. And I mean, that has been done in other works before, in film, books, and I mean, it's been done to much better effect, though. And I guess after having either watched movies where that's been done well, or having read books where that's been done well, then reading something like this, and it's a major letdown, at least for me anyway. And also, like I said earlier, I mean, this was right after The Cipher and Nightlife, both of which I thought were excellent horror novels, and they got the Abyss horror line off to a good start. And so this is book number 3, and already we're at kind of a letdown, which, I mean, considering this was there were multiple books in this imprint, I mean, it's bound to happen, but so soon after having gotten started, I mean, it was kind of like, okay, let's kind of learn from this, people. Let's do something better going forward. But I mean, to be fair though, it was, I guess, not getting attached to the characters, or having characters who are so juvenile in terms of I guess their actions and mentality. I mean, it did make for some very quick reading. I breezed through this in just a couple of days, and I mean, like, we're talking, I mean, 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 tops. I mean, because you have work and other stuff in real life, obviously cutting in. But anyway, though, I read through this rather quickly, and I did see moments where a better novel was trying to come out, but unfortunately, it never made it. And the closest we're going to get to that would be close to the beginning of the book, involving the ghost town. But once you get past that, you're in for a lousy time. So yeah, that was my take on Dusk, and yeah, I was hoping for more, I guess, something better. But yeah, it was a letdown. Not the worst book I've read, but it was something that I didn't particularly enjoy reading, and I don't see myself going back to reread this at any point. So it had some moments that worked, but a few decent moments can't really save the whole thing when the rest of it's made up of stuff that you can't really take seriously. So anyway, though, yeah, that's my take on it. I'm going to go ahead and give Dusk 2 out of 5 stars. I probably would have given it 1 out of 5, but that beginning part of the book with the ghost town, that was actually well done. So Rondi can, write moody, atmospheric, pieces. It's just, maybe he's better doing short stories or something like that, because that would have been a very good short story. But yeah, a full-length novel, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so that was my take on Dusk. 2 out of 5 stars. It was okay. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to check out this review. Y'all got any comments, questions, drop a line, let me know. Y'all have a good night.